All right, today we're diving into something really wild. It's a scientific framework called sequention. And, well, it's going to ask you to rethink pretty much everything you thought you knew about life, evolution, and even time itself.
So let's just jump right in with the big, central, kind of mind-bending question here. What if time isn't real? Seriously, what if our entire experience of time passing, seconds ticking by, is just an illusion, a trick our minds are playing to make sense of a reality that's actually timeless?
Okay, to get our heads around this, the theory gives us this really powerful analogy. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that our entire 3D reality, everything we see and touch, is nothing more than a shadow. A shadow that's being cast by a complete, timeless, four-dimensional object.
And this really gets to the heart of the difference. So, the standard view, what we all learned in school, sees evolution like a movie, right? A long historical process that unfolds frame by frame over millions of years. But the sequential view, it says, no, that's not it at all. It suggests we're just looking at different slices of a single, static sculpture. A sculpture that contains the entire story of life all at once.
So what is this timeless sculpture? Well, it has a name. They call it the 4D counterspace. And I want you to try and picture this. A huge, higher dimensional space that basically holds the blueprint for every possible viable life form and every environmental relationship that could ever exist. It's all there, right now, simultaneously.
So what does that mean for us? It means our entire reality, the living, breathing world we can see and measure, is just one possible 3D shadow that's being projected from that 4D object. We're just seeing one single perspective, one tiny slice of a much, much bigger picture. Okay, so if everything exists at once, where does our sense of time come from? Why do we experience a now? The theory has a word for this, foliation, and it's basically the act of our perception, our consciousness, slicing through that 4D sculpture. Each slice is a moment, and when you stack all those slices together, you get the sequence we experience as past, present, and future. It's an illusion created by how we look at it.
Right, I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredibly abstract, almost like science fiction. Is there any real-world evidence for something like this? Well, the theory points to a surprisingly concrete place, the chemical signature of the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs.
Okay, so geochemists looked at these tiny little spheres of rock that were created by the impact. And what they found was fascinating. Two different kinds of chemical signatures. The first type they call slice invariant. You can think of this as a property of that timeless 4D source. It's a signature of the asteroid's original composition, stuff forged in stars ages ago. But then there's a second type, foliation dependent. This signature was created over time, as the superhot plume of debris from the impact cooled down. It's an artifact of the 3D process. And this is the amazing part. It gives us a real physical way to tell the difference between the timeless sculpture and its temporal shadow.
But the theory doesn't just stop with time. Oh no, it goes after another huge pillar of modern science, randomness. The core idea of sequentation is that what we perceive as pure chance might not be chance at all.
And this isn't just a small tweak, it's a reinterpretation across every scale of reality. At the quantum level, what we call fundamental randomness is maybe just an artifact of us not having all the information. In our everyday classical world, what seems like chaotic noise is actually a super complex, deterministic, fractal structure. And in biology, evolution isn't this series of random mutations, it's a form of deterministic, adaptive computation. So in every single case, what we call a roll of the dice is actually a complex pattern that we just can't see from our limited point of view.
And there's some really compelling evidence for this out there in the world. Think about a flock of starlings. You've seen those incredible murmurations, right? Well, their perfectly coordinated movements are non-local. That means the whole flock changes direction faster than any signal, like sound or sight, could possibly travel from one bird to the next. It's as if they're all connected to or tapping into the same underlying pattern at the exact same moment.
Here's another great example, the so-called intelligent behavior of slime mold. Seriously, you give this stuff a problem, like finding the most efficient path between a bunch of food sources in a maze, and it doesn't just guess randomly. It deterministically chooses the optimal network. It's not a random choice, it's an emergent behavior of a complex physical system. It is, for all intents and purposes, a computer made of goo, and it's not random.
So this all raises a really big question, right? If this whole theory is about some timeless, higher dimensional reality we can't directly see, how on earth can we ever test it? Well, the answer is you have to shift your entire approach.
Instead of trying to prove it or disprove it in the traditional sense, the goal becomes something more like map-making, like cartography.
And the logic here is pretty airtight, in a way. Any experiment we could possibly run exists here, in our 3D reality. That means the experiment itself is just another projection from that 4D space. So trying to use a 3D experiment to disprove the 4D source, it's literally like a shadow trying to disprove the existence of the object that's casting it. You just can't do it.
So instead of trying to falsify the theory, the paper proposes a totally new kind of scientific program. It's based on what it calls cartographic inquiries. These are real experiments, like the ones you see listed here, but they're designed with a different question in mind. They're not asking, is this theory true? They're asking, what does the map of this territory look like? The whole point is to start measuring the geometric features of this unseen 4D landscape of life.
And this completely reframes the whole scientific process, because in this framework, a failed experiment, one where the result doesn't match your prediction, is actually a huge success. It doesn't mean the theory is wrong, it just means your map was wrong. And now you have the crucial information you need to go back and draw a better, more accurate one.
So, this whole idea of the map is not the territory, this leads us to what is maybe the most profound implication of this entire theory. It's a real perspective shift on what reality even is.
When you boil it all down, sequention transforms evolution from a story about the past into a timeless geometric problem. And that leads to this incredibly powerful conclusion. Time belongs to the map, not the territory. It's just a tool, a coordinate system we invented to help us navigate, not some fundamental feature of reality itself.
And that leaves us with one last, really provocative thought. If something as fundamental as time is just a feature of the map we're using to describe the territory, well, what else is? What other parts of our reality are just shadows? How much of what we experience every single day is just a projection from a deeper, unseen, and truly timeless structure?